Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com.
Today we're going to talk about rescues and just kind of the experiences that we have as dog trainers, and our take on it, and just kind of going through some of the experiences that we've had with rescue dogs, and just kind of everything that's happening in the world today with the rescue dogs. And just to kind of sum this up, it's there's the same problem with the overpopulation of feral horses, and we call them Mustangs, but they're not really Mustangs. That lineage really has died, and they're feral horses. And when the economy dropped out, a lot of the places have, ranches, not really the working ranches, but a lot of horse owners just turned their horses loose because they couldn't afford to feed them. And naturally the horses came into a herd, and they found them. And so they're, what we call Mustangs are really a feral horse, and and they have a roundup every year with these feral horses, and they keep the herds maintained because the herds are really damaging the land. And so then we have all these feral horses, or what we call Mustangs, in holding pens, and they're up for adoption. And they're not being adopted as quickly as the reproduction out there. And in general, there's organizations that are fighting the sterilization of the herd, because once you sterilize the herd, then the herd dies eventually. And so, there's all kinds of controversy on that. And I think it's just as raw and as real as it is in the dog world. And the rescues and helping the overpopulation problem, the overpopulation problem is never going to go away until we start controlling the production of puppies. And it's not the breeders out there, it's not the responsible breeders that are causing the problem. There's a lot of breeders that are taking a little bit more aggressive stance by putting avid chips in their puppies. So if they do end up in the shelters, that the avid chip is tied back to the breeders. And so, a lot of the breeders that we work with are really doing their best to be responsible about where their dogs go. But I also find that it's just as difficult to go in and apply to adopt a dog from an organization that they decide if you should or are a good dog owner. And there's no clear defined boundaries of what that is. If you go out to adopt a horse, they've got some pretty clear defined information that you have to have, and they will turn you away if you don't qualify for certain criteria. But it's not about, are you going to ride the horse? It's not about, what your goals are or what kind of a horse owner you are. It's more about what's your facility like, and do you have a horse trailer that can haul a feral horse. And so sometimes it forces people to go out and buy puppies from backyard breeders, because I can spend $100 on a backyard breeder puppy, where if I go to the shelter to adopt a puppy, sometimes it's $200 to $300. And I get it. It comes with the shots, and it comes with the sterilization and everything. But sometimes that big hit up front is harder than it is to spread it out. That we get a puppy, and every 3 weeks we pay for vaccinations, and we spread it out. And then at 6 months and 6 to 8 months, we get them fixed. And so that expense is spread out through that first year of ownership versus, this one hit. So it tends to drive people to finding dogs other ways. But also, there's somebody's emotional state that determines whether you're a good dog owner or not. And I think that's another thing that turns people away. Is the cat going to be outside? Yes, then you can adopt it. Are you going to ride the horse in some of these horse rescues? Yes, then you can't adopt the horse. It's so I think that people get kind of afraid of being judged on what kind of owners that you are or can be, that why would we go through that? And then I think the other piece of it is that the baggage that comes with the stigma of being a rescue is difficult as well. So I think some of the things that we want to talk about is the rescuing of the reservation dogs and our take on it. And, are we looking out for the best interest of the dogs and what's going to be better for an overall community, to what really is a rescue dog, and how can we change that stigma of that rescue dog. So, Michelle, you and I went on a consultation, and it was with a dog that was off a reservation. And so just kind of tell me your take. It was the first time in. I had done a consultation prior to that, and we were getting ready to start some lessons. Do you remember what dog that was? It was up east, the Chihuahua.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, man, that one. How could I ever forget?
Right.
That one.
Yep.
Talk about getting the wrong dog in the wrong house.
Right.
If that dog should have ever even been in a house.
Yeah.
He was a reservation dog, Chihuahua. So of course nobody thinks that. No, I mean, I was shocked when you told me that he was a res dog and he was this tiny little Chihuahua. That's not what you think of.
Right.
You think of these you see a lot of labs, a lot of like pity lab type things.
Yeah. Yep.
So when I went in, and the second I saw him, it was so obvious that is where he was from, because he was a survivor, 100%. There was no instinct for him to rely on them to help him, or rely on them to save him. Even his was a fight or flight, and he was going to fight most of the time. 99% of the time, he was up for a fight.
Yeah.
And it was 8 pounds of scary, scary dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think, if you were just looking out for the best interests of the dog, where should that dog be?
I don't think he should have been in a home, especially in the home that he was placed in. He was placed in a home with a kid, a kid that
he had bitten pretty severely.
Yeah, and I didn't actually meet the daughter, but from what I gathered, the daughter was a very, very animal lover. And I'm not saying most kids aren't, because they are, but she wanted a puppy she could cuddle.
Yeah.
And he was just not that dog.
Yep.
And that's what had kept happening, was she was trying so desperately to get him to love her, and it just wasn't it. He couldn't.
Yeah.
He just didn't have that instinct in him at all. So he'd bitten her. Like I said, I didn't see her, but it sounds like from that she was pretty scarred in her face from a tiny little dog.
Yeah.
I bet he was probably smaller than 8 pounds.
Yeah.
I was just saying 8 pounds. So in my personal opinion, he probably should have been picked up, fixed, and left on the reservation, because that's where he was. In my personal opinion, that is where he was the most happy.
Yeah.
That's what he knew. That was his instincts. That was everything, that his whole entire world. And to take him and put him in, not just into a box, into a house, but into one that didn't have the time and the energy and the resources and it just was not a good place for him to be. It was not, and it was not. And that poor little girl now has to have that memory of that dog in her life forever, that she tried so hard to get that dog to love her, and he couldn't. And she was seriously, 7?
Yeah.
She doesn't understand that.
Right.
She's probably never going to understand that. She's going to grow up thinking that, I don't know.
Yeah. Melissa, do you think it's okay for dogs to be feral?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they know. That's where they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
Visiting other countries, you see feral dogs hanging out, and they're happy. They're hanging out. They know what they're doing, and
people feed them.
Yeah, people feed them. They're just as part of the community as the dogs that are with owners, and it's different worlds. And we try to put this cuddly, you're going to come lay on the bed with me, onto these dogs that, like Michelle was saying, they want to survive. They want to be out where they're happy and their instincts are. And
Yep. I had another client that has a res dog, and when we say the res dog, these dogs are pulled off the Indian reservations and fixed and put up for adoption. And I have another client that she just couldn't understand why her dog wanted to be out in the garden. I mean, that's just where he wanted to be. And being inside was I mean, it was fine, but he really just preferred to survive out in their big yard, and they have a really big, nice yard, and he wanted to stay in the outskirts of where all the flower beds were and the trees, and I mean, it was like all the way around their house was more wooded, and that's where he loved to be, and yet they wanted to have that be with me. We're going to look at all the things that we're going to go do, and he just really wanted to be in the backyard in those woods, he eventually got to a point where he is compliant with what they do, but he still prefers to be out in the woods. Shannon, what's your take on, how do we control the population, but still, being okay having the dogs out there? I mean, and when I say out there, I'm, country to the reservations to, that type of living.
Well, like you talked about earlier, that we are okay with feral cat colonies. And in the city, which is where I live, so that's what I know about, there are lots of programs to help feral cat colonies. So why don't we have programs to help feral dog colonies? There's all kinds of grants and financial support and things for where any person could go catch a feral cat, take it into any veterinarian they choose, have it spayed or neutered, and release it back to the world, and they don't have to pay anything for it. They just need the goodness of their heart to want to help an animal, to go and catch it and take it into the vet. Like, that's really all that it is. And I think that is why there's so much emotional baggage tied up in rescuing dogs, is because people feel that they want to help animals, and they don't maybe know the best way. We have certain systems in place now, and so they think that is the best way. But we could make new systems that would really be beneficial.
And I know we have all kind of traveled and seen some of the dilapidated situations. Not the worst of the worst. Melissa, you're probably closest to seeing some of the worst of the worst when you're traveling to some of the third world countries that you've been to. But even going over to Puerto Rico, I found it really peaceful to watch the feral dog packs, and they're happy, and they're fat, and they're healthy, and there's nothing. And one of the experiences we had is we met one of the restaurants that we ate at regularly and had breakfast at and stuff. Him and his wife did a lot of not rescuing, but did a lot of like the controlling of those. And so they would catch and fix, and there was a handful, as they would go along. If the dogs really wanted to stay at their house and like move in, the dogs did. And it was so fascinating because they were like, yeah, some just left and went back to their home, and others stayed with us. And so, and the ones that stayed with them is, they come in and out, but they would stay with them. Like, they had that more of that home and you and what can I do for you type behaviors. And so they kind of allowed the dog to make that choice. And I know we can't do that here in the city, but, what have you seen, Melissa, with, some of the packs and the feral dogs that you've seen all over? How do you feel when you see them?
I have the two most memorable, one in Cambodia. So we were kind of this rural area of Cambodia outside of the capital, and we were coming in, and we met up with this guy. He was actually our taxi driver, and he had a bunch of pictures of dogs on the roof of his taxi. And so I was like, what is the deal? And he's like, oh, these are my friends. And so I started asking him more, but his brother is a vet, so he picks up these dogs when he's doing rounds, takes them, gets them fixed, and lets them out.
Nice.
And I was talking to him about, like, what's, the point, and I forget the phrase he called them, like neighborhood guardians, I think something to that effect. That's what they call the pack.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you ever have aggressive dogs? And he's like, no, the dogs manage themselves. They know people. They're happy with people. Certain dogs, like there was one, they called him Ghost. He was all white. He would come and eat the scraps at the market every morning. But they were such a part of life that nobody felt bad for him.
Yeah.
Like he had 3 dogs of his own, personal, but he treated the feral dogs as a different breed almost.
Yeah.
Like they were, like he would never think of going and adopting a tiger.
Right.
Because I feel bad for the tiger.
Right.
And I really liked that he kept them separate.
Yeah.
So that I really loved that, and I wish I could have spent more time with him.
Yeah.
He just drove us. But then in Saudi Arabia, they have a really different relationship with dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs they use them to hunt, so it's kind of a status of wealth. But then stray dogs, most people are scared of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then so the Bedouins will come in and get stray dogs and teach them how to hunt. So the outskirts of the city, most of the dogs migrate out. You never see dogs in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
But the more outskirts, the dogs hunt rats, the dogs hunt all the vermin around, or the Bedouins, the ones that like the Bedouins, are attracted to them and kind of go to the camps.
Sure.
And follow. So it's they kind of separate themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was interesting. They keep them outside of the city.
Right.
The people don't like dogs.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Most people are scared of them.
Sure.
But the Bedouins, they use them to hunt and clean up the city, and so that was interesting. They were more like a cleanup crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vermin and
for
stuff.
For sure. Michelle, when you were over in Italy and traveling around, what was some of your experiences with the Pharaoh dogs and the rescues and all of that?
You know, I don't think we saw a feral dog there the entire time we were there. It was really interesting because none of their dogs are fixed. I mean, well, the females might have been. Obviously, that's not something that I was lifting up dogs' legs to check if they had a scar or asking people. I actually did ask a few of our tour guides. I was like, what is it with all of your dogs not being fixed here? And I had one guy that he was like, how did you notice that? And I was like, because it's such a big deal in our country that everything has to be fixed that I was like, and it's very obvious you guys don't. I don't even know if I saw any mixed breed dogs, to be honest with you. Most of their dogs over there were definitely purebred dogs that were not fixed. But I think it's a pride thing. I really think that and I only saw one person that had more than one dog ever. So I think people just get the right dog in the right house. I mean, we never were in the country. We were always definitely in cities. But it just didn't seem like a problem there. Yeah, it just didn't. And dogs there are such a part of life that they're welcome into the market. They're welcome into a restaurant. They're welcome. People just do that because it is such city dense places that it's just dogs are just a part of your life. And so I think that's probably a big part of it is that your dog is always with you. So your dogs are not out having puppies with random neighbor dogs. And I've run into a few feral packs in Mexico a few times. And the interesting thing about Mexico depends on where you're at.
Sure. Yeah.
Because when we were in Cancun, we went to Coba, and there was a feral pack there that was extremely fat and extremely friendly. But I don't think it had anything to do with the locals. I think it was all the tourists were feeding them. And there was a few of them that were extremely friendly and getting pictures with kids, and and I'm sitting there going, I know these dogs haven't been vaccinated. I cannot believe you're letting your kids touch these dogs, people. But but it was very, very obvious that these dogs were
they knew where the source came from.
Very, very fat and well taken care of. But as you were saying, the people that allowed their dogs some of them, they just decided to live there. I remember thinking that some of those dogs could easily be put in homes and some of them couldn't. Sure. That were in that pack because there were definitely, all of them you could tell had been eating, but there were a few of them that were definitely skittish and didn't want to be around people. They were just doing it to survive. And then there were other ones that really were getting pictures taken and just lazy and just, hanging out and stuff. But if you go to places like Ensenada, all those dogs look like they're emaciated and are going to die any day. So, it's very, But you could tell nobody in those societies felt bad for them either. It wasn't like there's no rescues. Rescues. There's no those dogs just are.
Yeah. And I think that, circling back to the dogs on the reservation, I've been through reservations and they may have fleas and they, maybe, they've got some stuff going on, but the dogs are actually really happy. I mean, sometimes probably happier than what our house dogs are. I mean, they know where the heat is. They know where the food is. They know what time the food is. and they, they're living amongst, and I think that, spaying and neutering and managing a feral dog situation, it makes more sense to me that not all of them should be in homes and that we should recognize that. And the ones that are truly are, and those, no problems, should be taken in and helped. But I think that the ones that aren't should be let be and just managed better. And that we shouldn't be saving them all in the sense of pulling them off a reservation, because I think to a certain extent that can be borderline cruelty to a dog. That it would be like, as much as I would really love a giraffe and a monkey, I think it would be very cruel and inappropriate for me to get a giraffe and a monkey. And I feel that same way with feral dogs. Is some dogs just, I think it's cruel to put them in a society that they really don't have the genetic ability to function in there, and we end up getting in trouble with them. And I'm not saying that we can't help them be successful, but it's surely not the success that we have with our domesticated dogs that we go and adopt. So, let's circle into the rescues and shelters that are local within the cities. And, the animal control is, they take in dogs that are running at large. The Humane Society, you can surrender your dog to them. And, to me, why are dogs running at large, Shannon?
Sometimes people can't take care of their dog, and instead of using the facility, they let the dog out on the street. Sometimes a dog just gets out of the house or the car when someone's on vacation or at work, and it's running out in the street, and animal control comes and picks it up so it won't get hit by a car, And then sometimes those people never find their dog, which is sad, But other dogs are feral dogs, which we already talked about, that are already on the street, and that's their lifestyle. So it's hard. It's not really hard to weed it out if you're catching dogs. I know from experience because I find lost dogs in my neighborhood all the time. And if you just go out on the corner with a leash and say, "Hey, doggy," and the dog runs over to you and has a collar, that dog needs to be helped to get home, So I take the dog and help it get home. I do that all the time. If the dog doesn't want to come to you, if it runs away, usually you scare it enough that it's like, "Oh man, I should really go home." And it just runs straight home, or to wherever its home is. So, there are dogs that are on the street because they're not at their own home, or they've been displaced from their home and need to be in a new one. And those are the dogs that should be at the shelter and should be put into correct homes for their temperament and the lifestyle of the people.
Yeah, I always joke because dogs like to get in the truck, and that's kind of my cue. Is we've on the road a lot, and we see. It's super fun. I really like, as you're driving through the country and you see the dogs out hunting in the field. It's super fun, and people think, "Oh, we need to catch it and get it home." Well, its home's probably like 2 blocks up the road, but this is really good hunting ground, so we're going to come and hunt. To where we were in the middle of nowhere, Montana, and there was this dog just walking, it's just kind of trotting along the side of the freeway. Almost if you see coyotes and wolves that are, there's really a purpose to them, when they're moving like that. And this dog was like that. And I thought, I thought to myself, my inner, it's a dog, it's not a coyote, it's not a wolf, that's a dog. And we're in the middle of nowhere. But this dog looked really healthy and no collar on it. And so Chris and I stopped and opened the door, and it looked at us, and it kept on keeping on. And that doesn't happen much. Usually if you open the door, they're getting in. If they really belong somewhere, or they've been trying to survive and they know that they need to depend on people. And so we just let it keep on keeping on, And there's still sometimes that dog crosses into my mind and think, I wonder what happened to it. But it was fine. It was happy. It was just like, yeah, no, I'm going this way. And it wasn't frightened. It wasn't just keeping on. So I think that we get so emotional about these rescues, and they all need a home, and somebody needs to save this. And I think we need to focus on population control of these dogs that are being rescued. Going in, if we have backyard breeders, why are we not spending the money to go in and offer to fix their dogs for them for free and fix their puppies and assist that, or help them understand about breeding and educating them? It's really easy because they advertise. And why are we not taking the opportunity to allow feral packs? It's pretty peaceful, and it's okay to take care of them. Melissa?
One thing that I kind of keep thinking about is, and I know we've all experienced it, rescue shaming.
Yeah.
That if you didn't quote unquote rescue your dog, then it's not good. And I personally, I think I rescued my dogs.
Sure.
In a way, because they have a good home. I love them. They're happy.
Yep.
So I consider that a success.
They're not going to end up in the shelter.
Yeah, they're not going to end up back, in the shelter. And I think rather than just trying to rescue a dog in a way that comforts us, take pride in having a good dog. I mean, a good house for your dog.
Right.
Take pride in your dog being happy.
Yep.
Don't take pride in victimizing your dog over and over and over again by calling them a rescue, because that just victimizes them.
Right.
Over and over again.
And then how do we look at them?
We look at them as like a victim, and we pity them. And the dog doesn't pity themselves.
Right.
The dog's kind of looking up and going, "You're treating me weird.
Yeah.
Something's weird with this situation. You're feeling bad for me for some reason, or maybe belittling me."
Right.
I think it's very belittling when people victimize their dog like that.
Totally.
And so the dog's going to act different.
Yeah.
But if you treat them like
a dog,
the dog they are,
right.
It gets much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Michelle?
You kind of talked about this earlier, but I do think it's really interesting. I have a Papillon. Do you know I would not be able to adopt a Papillon from the Papillon Rescue?
How come?
Because I have a dog that's over 15 pounds. Murphy would disqualify me. Not just that, but you are not allowed to have a dog that in the house that's not already fixed, which, I mean, all my dogs are fixed, but I looked a few years ago and Murphy wasn't fixed at the time, and I was like, well, okay, that's out.
Yep.
You can't live in an apartment, which I think is absolutely ridiculous for a Papillon, because people that live in apartments, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we kind of talked about this earlier. Some of these rescues have I mean, am I a bad dog owner?
No.
Yeah.
Right.
When I found out I couldn't have one, I adopt from them. I was like, what? How randomly crazy is that?
Yeah, and I've gone to the shelter either to do personality assessments on dogs or helping clients. I come out feeling like the worst dog owner in the world. Yeah. And I know I'm not. I know I'm a great dog owner, but one lady was talking to me about the toys I get for my dogs. And I was like, I don't really get too many toys for them. And the look she gave me, I was like, whoa, okay, sorry, geez, oh. And I don't know, I think there's just this our idea of what saving means does not align with dogs. And just because you took a dog out of the shelter, let's say I took, I'm trying to imagine this, a dog, put it in a home, but it's miserable in the home. Is it better off still being miserable, but it has a home? It has toys. What if it hates it? Is that still a success? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is such mixed that, Shannon, I would say that I've rescued because I've had two that wasn't a good fit for their owners, and I've had many, I think, but I've never once adopted from a rescue or a shelter. Shannon just took on a little one that needed the right home, and that is a rescue. We're not calling her a rescue.
All of my dogs have been rescues by the definition, like other people's definition, I guess. And I never, when I got a dog, I wasn't looking to rescue a dog. I just wanted a dog and waited for the right one to fit in my family. So my dog, Boston, I went with a friend who was adopting a dog from the animal shelter, and I found him at the animal shelter and adopted him because he was the right dog for me. So that is a rescue. Louis was a dog that was abandoned at the veterinarian. So I took him into my house. That is a rescue, a dog that's abandoned. My sister's dog, Clementine, was a dog that was found on the street. A dog that was a street dog that was in someone's home that they didn't want anymore and let it out on the street. So a dog that should be in a home. That is a rescue, a dog off the street. And my new dog, a dog that was from someone who couldn't take care of it anymore. And so it was a good fit for my family, so I have it now. So every single dog, by the definition of what people think of a rescue, is what I have in my house. But was I looking to rescue a dog? No, I was just looking. I wanted a dog, and I wanted it to fit in my life. And those were the dogs that I found that fit.
Yeah, and I don't think it's bad to go get a rescue dog, but don't get a dog just because it's a rescue dog.
Right.
Like Shannon was saying, your first priority should be, one, does this dog fit into my house? And does it happen to be a rescue? Okay, cool.
Great. Yeah.
But does it happen to be from somewhere else? Like, it's fine. I guess the only place, don't get a puppy mill dog.
Right.
That's the only no.
Right.
But don't just get the first criteria has to be a rescue, because that can create a lot of problems.
I wouldn't say any of my dogs are rescues, even though I have rescued a dog. I have a dog that lives with my parents that I never ever talk about on this podcast, which is kind of funny because out of any of my dogs, she's got the most problems. So I should have enough to say about her. But it's funny because when we adopted her, they told us that she was abused. I do not, now that I know better, that dog was not abused. She just was in the wrong home at the wrong, when she was a puppy and was under socialized. That is it. That's not being rescued. That is, they decided that she was not the right dog for them and had to turn her over. I guess if any of my dogs, if you want to go down that road, Rambo was actually sold to another person before we met with the breeder. And the breeder felt extremely uncomfortable with the husband of that purchase. And so she actually sent them their money back because she was like, I just like you guys better. So, was Rambo rescued? Did we just skip that step of him going to a shelter in 3 months when the husband decided that, nope, that was not the dog for them?
I think that, I think that we can go on. And I think for me, as we kind of wrap this up, is it's not a rescue. It's not adopted. It's not feel sorry for. We have plenty of dogs in this world, and some of the dogs should be in their own feral pack. I really believe that, and I would just totally embrace that. And it's kind of where my heart is, man, if that's where you want to be, that is awesome. And be there, and you don't have to like me. But I'm going to care for you, and I'm going to help the pack stay sound, just like this couple in Puerto Rico. And they, I've talked to them since the hurricane and the struggles that's happening there. They were able to get all of their feral packs out prior to the hurricane hitting. And they are setting up their colonies again and getting prepared to bring them back. And they'll still be their feral colony. And that just, to me, gives me chills, because I would love that opportunity to have a feral pack, because I think some dogs are just happier there, and that they can manage themselves and be great dogs. And I think that, what it comes down to is stop feeling sorry for the dog and taking the dog because it's the right fit. Whether it's from a breeder, whether it's off the streets, whether it's somebody can't care for it, whether it's going to the shelters, whether it's working with a breeder, wherever that fit is just getting a dog and taking that dog from the point that you get it, and who cares about its past, because it doesn't. It just wants to look forward into the moment of today. And don't rescue for the wrong reasons. Don't do the right thing for the wrong reasons. And stop getting emotional about it. Be real and honest, and stop calling it a rescue, because at the end of the day, you have a dog. And don't feel bad for the reservation dogs, but maybe if there's anybody out there that has the ability to help function a feral colony on the reservations, that you just go in and fix them and let them be feral. It will control the population, and we won't have all these puppies running all over the place that, they're born into it. They don't know. And And, you know, just coming full circle back to the horses is it's okay. It's okay to fix and to manage. But it's also not okay to just lock them up and not have a place for them to go either. I would rather see a dog or a horse out than locked in a holding cell. And I would rather have the population be fixed and managed and maybe keep the 2 strong ones alive, to, not saying for the dogs, but for the horses to, you know, if you've got a strong stallion and a strong mare, then let them be the one baby a year that, you know, instead. So I just think that, you know, there's a place for them, and there's also a way to control the population and to keep them healthy, and that we shouldn't feel bad that they're not in a home, because some dogs don't want to be there.
Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com. And as always, we urge you to get out and train.